Well, hello guys. Welcome to another video. We will be, as usual, we'll be creating some basic, perhaps simple creations in 3D Max, just to sort of like introduce you to 3D art and designs using 3D Studio Max, of course. Um, as usual, whatever we're creating is going to be as simple as possible. Guessing, or perhaps I would say, this video live stream is targeted at people that are just starting out in Max or 3D generally. Um, the thing is, uh, 3D concepts or the idea of the whole process, once you know it in one software, you can easily, I won't just say adapt, you can transfer those skills, those knowledge across board. Like there are basic things that if I go into, um, excuse me, while 3D Studio Max is my primary application for doing 3D, I could jump into, say, Cinema 4D, for example, or Maya or any other application to quickly get a few stuff out. And it's mainly from my basic knowledge of 3D Studio Max. For example, how to navigate a scene is something I do quite easily or quickly, while when I get into a new 3D software, basically from the knowledge I have from 3D Max, kind of like an industry standard thing. And yeah, you can transfer those knowledge across board. So, as usual, this is me. My name is Tolu. I do media, I do video, I do designs, 3D arts, and I'm a handy DIY guy. I love technical stuff, so I get around a lot of things. You could check me on LinkedIn, and yeah, like I said, because I do a lot of stuff, you find me sort of like here and there. Um, all right, so let's jump right in. So I have, as usual, 3D Max opened already. So let's, before we get started, I know I mentioned that it's always nice to have reference. So I'm just going to open up, let's pop up Paint, and let's have a quick visual of what we would like to design today. So where's my brush? And let's see. So I'm gonna have we're gonna have a simple wall. Sorry, I'm drawing with my mouse, so it's gonna be a little bit crooked. I'm gonna have a simple piping with the edges right there. So I'm kind of like going to let's just finish this first. So simple piping to the side. Another thing important, or that is very good with 3D, when to know rather when you are doing 3D, is that do not create what the camera isn't going to see. It's a freaking waste of time, waste of resources, and everything. I'm gonna undo. So it's just gonna put that a little bit wider, and yep, and let me get back to my brush. So I'm just trying to do a raw sketch rather of what, and perhaps I'm gonna put a wall electricity outlet. Yeah. I have oops. Do European style let's just have it like this, and one on the side. Da, 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 da. Okay, and let's switch. All right, you get the picture. So I'll just use this as a rough guide. You use whatever it is you want as your guide. So I'm going to jump back to 3D Max, and as usual, I'm going to start. I'm always on the assumption that you might be a beginner and you're just starting out. It's a simple part, so I always breeze through it from the beginning of all, if not most of my tutorials. Anyway, so how to jump around your scene if you're opening 3D Max for the first time. You might have this quad view. These are orthogonal views, which is a flat surface from the top, the front, the left, and this is a perspective view. You could jump around your perspective by holding this guy right here. I hope you're not using a very old version of 3D Max. Anyway, so what you're seeing on these views, this kind of like helps you understand it a little bit quickly. I created this. You would not see this object by default. This is what you're gonna have. So you have your top, which is what you're seeing here, left, here, and front. And of course, you have other sides. You can change the views to other views as you want. Okay, so how do you fly around your scene? Meanwhile, by the way, in some applications, you could have a full perspective view like this, but it's always good to have your orthogonal view, just so that when you move things around, you know their exact placement or wherever it is you want to place it. So jumping around your scene, you want to be able to do a few basic things. You want to be able to pan, you want to be able to orbit, and you want to be able to zoom. So this is pan. I'm holding the middle button of my mouse. In most cases, your scroll, which is also a button if you press it down. To orbit, I'm going to hold on my Alt and my middle mouse button. And to zoom, a little bit obvious, I'm going to scroll, and that's for your zoom. And to move objects around, you want to be able to select and move, you want to be able to select and rotate, and you want to be able to select and scale. As I mentioned, select and move, select and rotate at the top of the screen, and select and scale right here. So I hope, okay, I think, so select and scale is at the top top left of my screen, the tooltip. I think I must have disabled something on my system. So if you follow that, that's a select and move, select and rotate, select and scale, represented by shortcuts on your keyboard, which is W, E, and R. Just like I mentioned earlier, universal, kind of like a standard thing. It's similar in Unreal Engine. All right, so W to select and move, undo, select and rotate, undo, and select and scale. And take note, you have axis, which is the Z, the X, and the Y. So you could, for example, scale things along the Z axis, and it does not directly affect any other axis. Same thing, you could move along Z, you could move along Y and X. So now that we are done, finally your creation panel. This is where to get all your objects. So if I come here, this is my creation panel. I have my geometry, and you have your drop down, you have your standard, extended, and so on. You have your splines, and that's where you get all the lines, and you have light, camera, and so on. So now that we're done with the basic of getting around your scene, I'm going to reset this. Don't save. Yep. And so let's start. Let's see now. Where do we start from? So I'm going to create a box to represent my wall, and just gonna hold that there. Just give me 1 second. Let me tweak. Where's my max? Let's tweak that a little bit. Okay, guess I'll just do this a little bit later. All right, so I'm going to I'm going to create this as my wall, and I'm just going to what now? Let's give it a length. From the top view, you can see the length, which in this case represents the thickness of the wall. I don't need much. The width, I don't think I need that much either. So I'm just going to leave this to 200. And I'm going to do the same for the height. Segments, I do not want to introduce segments, and that's from, you can see this from the top, you can see this from the front, and you would see this in your perspective by enabling the edged faces here. So I do not want those segments, reason being that they are unnecessary. I don't think I'm puncturing into the wall to need those segments. And as a rule of thumb, anything you're doing in 3D, if you do not have intention to use those segments, whether in the beginning or sometime in creating that object, kindly do not create the segments. And of course, you need to be able to project the base amount of segments you're going to use when creating your object ahead of time, just so that it's not too excessive if you introduce it at the beginning. So we have our wall. I'm going to create a floor by creating a plane. Come back to my creation panel on this side, and I create a plane, and I'm going to use, going to put this in, and yeah, this is what we have. And also it's a thing that if your camera, or if you do not intend to see a certain, basically you want to create only what the camera sees. So a view like this, for example, should do, and I'm not going to create beyond this. All right, so let's start with our basic stuff. We have a wall now, floor, and yeah, the piping. So let's go back to that. And our pipe, very simple. We're going to represent that with a cylinder. I'm going to create this from the top, right about the middle of my wall, or perhaps at the edge right here. So I'm going to create this, and I'm just going to create it basically maybe big or as little as possible. I want to also come towards the left side of your right side of your screen, which is your modify panel. Going to click on that, and because I have my cylinder selected, I'm going to just think my radius is a little bit fair for now, so I'm going to lift that and give it a little bit more height. I do not need the height segment, so I'm going to take that away. And as for the sides, the more segments you have, the smoother it is. For this little art of ours, I don't think we need too much segments, and looking at it from the top orthogonal view, you can see that if I add in more segments, it becomes smoother. Excuse me. If I take it down, you have less smoothness. So I think 18 is just fine, and smoothing is on, and just going to put this right here. I'm not going to put it on the wall directly. I'm just going to shift this a little bit away from the wall, as it may be in real life. Okay, so the one here is split into two, and you would notice from the this point right here that there's some form of joint there. So I'm going to split my piping into. Now I could be doing everything I'm doing really fast, and of course I put into consideration that I'm actually showing you guys how to do stuff, so I'm not going to see it all the way to the floor. I don't want to see the bottom off. Then again, just to add to our art, I'm going to, yeah, I could do that. So I'm going to do this and split this in two, giving space for the joint, and I'm going to create a copy. I described the difference between the copy instance and the reference, and in the previous video. I'm going to say that again. A copy gives you an independent copy, independent of any other copy. For the instance allows you to manipulate all your copies at once. So whatever you do to copy 1 affects copy 2, 3, and till infinity and beyond. For the reference, basically what happens to the mother does not happen to the child, basically. So I want to copy. Hit OK on that. So I have a copy down here. I'm going to leave it directly below. I'm going to reduce the height, and from my front view, I'm just going to reduce the height a little bit more. Not changing the radius or any other thing. I'm going to reduce that just a little bit more. Yep. And I'm going to move it up. Move this also up right about here. Okay, I think I'm gonna bring that down. Sorry, I'm going off the reference I drew earlier just a little bit. So now I'm going to create the joint here. So what do we use to create this joint? Let's see. There are quite a few ways you could achieve the same thing in 3D, and I'm going to do it like this just so that I show you a little bit of extrude, which I spoke about in the previous tutorial, and also I kind of like noticed that my what I say tool or pop-ups are not showing on screen. I have no idea why that's happening, but what I've done is I've duplicated this, and I'll figure out the pop-ups and the mouse icon a little bit later. So I've duplicated this, and I'm going to convert this to an editable poly. Come to sub-object level. There are a few sub-object level after converting it. We have a polygon, and if you did not go through the previous extrude and bevel tutorial, please do. It explains a few things so that I'm not showing it here again. So to make things a little bit flexible, I'm going to create a camera here by hitting Control C. I'm going to change this left view to my camera view by hitting C. I'm also going to change it to a shaded excuse me, a shaded view, and I'm going to move this back to my perspective so that I can jump around easily. So I'm going to select this duplicated cylinder, and I'm going to select the top of if you look closely from the front, you could see that it's slightly touching the top and the bottom pipes or cylinders, if you may. So I've selected polygon in the sub-object level, represented by the 4 button or the 4 key on your keyboard. So I'm going to select all this, hold my Alt key to subtract this selection, the body selection. I have only the top selected, and I'm going to I like to use bevel, but I'm going to use extrude. Come to my perspective view. I'm going to extrude just a tad bit, and I'm going to use my scale and scale that out just a little bit. And meanwhile, it was important to remember that this pipe or the joint is supposed to be slightly bigger than the original pipe. So I'm just going to come to my top view and slightly increase the size of this, just slightly. Okay, so for the fitting, which is what we just extruded, I'll go back to the polygon. It kept my selection because that's the last thing I selected. I'm going to bring this a little bit down, and I'm going to extrude one more time. Basically to fit the pipe in. And I'm going to do the same for the bottom. Now, because it's the same size top, right at the top here and at the bottom, I'm going to undo, and I'm going to do this again. So first of all, I'm going to increase the size right here. One second, please. Let's see. Let's check out my settings. I actually want to see if I can get my mouse back showing. That's strange. Okay, don't let me distract too much. So undo one more time to get rid of that. So I'm going to scale this up just a little bit, and if you see that, it's just a little bit from the top view. So I'm going to select the whole thing from the front, and I'm going to deselect the sides by holding my Alt key and dragging a selection. So I have both the top and the bottom selected. So I'm going to use my extrude. Going to extrude, or let's make use of a bevel instead. So bevel, undo, I mistakenly escape rather. Get back to my previous selection. So I'm going to click on that and click on extrude again. Yeah. Oops. If you hit Z, just in case something moves too far from your view, if you hit Z, it zooms in, all extend back to what you had in view before. So after clicking that in, I have my joint. So what's left is the one by the side. So to add that in, I'm going to use a copy of the original pipe. I use the short one. I'm going to duplicate one to the side like this. If you stay on your front viewport, and I'm going to rotate this with my snap on. My snap toggle is A. This allows me to turn things in incremental of 5 degrees. So I have an exact 90 right here. So I'm going to move this and undo. Fix that in on the side, and from the top view I can see it getting in. So I could leave this as it is and just group it, or I could also do a boolean, but I think a boolean would be absolutely unnecessary. So yeah, I actually wanted to do a boolean, so I think I'm gonna leave that for another object. So, but for this, you know what? I'm going to delete this, and instead I'm going to duplicate this. Copy, yes, I want copy. And once you shift drag, I know you can't see it on my screen, I'll figure that out later. Once you shift drag, you will have that pop up asking you if you want a copy, a reference, or an instance. So I have this like this. I do not need this bottom edge, so I'm just going to go into the polygon sub level, and I'm going to delete all that by hitting the delete key. I'm going to use the vertex. I'm going to extend this slightly and bring this backwards. Good. So we have, I'm just going to pull this into the middle, and from the top view. And I think it's too long, so I'm going to reduce this a little bit. Right there. Okay. Pull this in. And to make the two items, that's this one and this one, to make them this one, to make them into one object, I'm going to attach both of them. So I think this will be fine. So I'm going to select the main joint, and I think this is something I haven't mentioned before. Well, I think you should have the habit of labeling your objects, just like labeling your layers in Photoshop. So, oh no, I have a wrong object selected. U T joint, and you can label that. But if you go towards the modify panel at the top, and you find that right there. So I'm going to attach both of them. Select the main T joint. I don't need to label the other one since I'm attaching it to the main one. So I'm going to scroll through this, and you find attach. You could use the, why in heaven's name is all this not showing? All right, so there's a box beside it which could bring you the list of everything in your scene, or you could just click on the attach right there and attach the other part. Deselect that when done, and you would notice now that this is actually one object. So we have this done. I'm going to extend this slightly further down. Could have it like this, and I'm going to bring this. Okay, I think I was going to do something else back then. Okay, so I'm going to do something else, teach you another trick. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I want to copy for this cylinder, I'm going to need the height segments. But before that, I'm going to show you why you do need the height segment. So I'm going to go to my creation panel. I'm going to create a line, and I'm going to just sort of like create this on the front, somewhere around hopefully the middle of this cylinder. Gonna click and click. I'm going to use one click right here in the middle and one click right here and continue. I right click to end my line drawing process. So I'm going to select this pipe now, and I'm going to go to my modify panel. I'm going to add a path deform modifier. Sorry, all this is not showing, but it's in your modify list right here if you come to your modify panel. So in the path modifier, you have a pick path. If you see it to your right, you notice that is blinking. So I'm going to click on that and click on the line. It says illegal path. Why is that? Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. Path deform binding. So I'm going to delete that and use the path deform modifier. Click on path, click on the line, and your cylinder probably jumped somewhere. It's right here at the top, right here. So what do? We come here, we check out which of um, the axis it's deforming along. So I'm going to pick my Y. I want it to deform along Y. Pick the Y, and you will notice it has this funny look. I'm going to okay, so leaving it like this, I'm going to come back down the cylinder and start adding the height segment, and you will see that it makes it easy for the cylinder to now bend. So I'm going to move to path. It's right here in the modifier, if you can notice it blinking on the right side of your screen. Click on that, move to path. Sorry, I meant the z-axis, not y. But the good part about modifiers, you can see, just play around some of this. If you look to your right, you find your path deform axis, which is your going to increase, undo, not that. Increase this a little bit. You find what I'm talking about right here. So I'm going to select. Oh, where are you? Going to undo. Here's my pipe. So I clicked on move to path here, and if I go around the percentage, you find out that it's moving in the wrong axis. So I could play around by using other axis, and I have my z axis. So using the percentage, you could see how much it moves along the path. Now I could stretch this if I want, and I could also rotate and twist if I want that, but I do not, so I'm gonna zero that out. Right clicking on a spinner allows you to zero out a value. So I'm going to go back down the stack on the cylinder, and if you notice right here, oh dang, right at the bend of the cylinder right here, you would notice that the bend isn't that perfect. So I'm going to increase the sorry, one little detail to put in mind is when your cylinder is moving directly along what you've created. So you see a sharp edge here. I'm going to crease that a little bit by selecting this vertex and changing it to a smooth, now perhaps a bezier, and I could just handle that like this. Another way you could have done this is smoothing this out and basically taking this slightly forward, but no, I think I will stay with the bezier handles, and I think a bezier corner, and you will notice it's trying to ease itself out. So yeah, so that works it. I'm going to move this bend a little bit up. Do right there. And another way to handle such points would be I'm going to change this back to where it was, simply undo. I'm going to select the 2 points right there, and let's see other options like fillet, and I'm going to select that one more time and hit on the fillet one more time. Okay, so we have a nice bend there also, so that's another option. And I'm going to make this a form of joint also. And I'm not sure if you quite noticed, I have things in place for the front, and on the top and the camera view you find that things are not in place. So that's one of the huge reasons why you need to always use the other viewports. So I'm just going to move this along till it gets to the center of this. I'm going to select the cylinder one more time and ask it to move to path. So I have this here, and I'm just going to repeat basically everything I have done before for this other joint. So before I do that, I'm going to increase the percentage. I just need the edge touching the pipe right here, and I can see that it's not centered, so I'm going to move this just a little bit using my front viewport. It's not aligned, so I'm going to adjust that a little bit, move right there. Okay, so one last, I think it's fine there. So I'm going to convert this to an editable poly. I could collapse this by just doing this, and undo. I could just add in my editable poly as a modifier, where down that would be E. Sorry, you're not seeing this. So editable poly, once you come to your modify panel, you have your modify list somewhere under the name of the item. So just gonna figure out why all that option isn't showing a little bit later. Edit poly, and I've added an edit poly, if you see this here, and I'm going to put this top. I want to top off this item to extrude bevel. Extrude this a little bit, and always make sure you deselect your polygon or whatever selection you've made before jumping up a stack, else your modifier might just affect only what you have selected below the stack. So I'm going to go back here and undo. Reason why I'm doing is I want to do it to I want the bevel to appear on both sides. So going to select the top, and I'm jumping behind the wall basically. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to right click on the wall, rather deselect you, right click on the wall. I could hide selection, or I could simply click on my pipe and isolate. If you right click on your menu, you would find isolate at the top of your right click menu. So isolate, and edit polygon. I want the top, and the bottom, and I'm going to extrude just a little bit. and I could scale that up. Undo. Selected one part, so good. Bevel, whichever you choose, really. You could extrude and adjust, or you could bevel. So I have that edge in. I'm done. So if you right click on the scene, you could now say end isolation right around the same place you did the initial isolation. So don't forget, go back down your stock and deselect everything before you jump back up. So what's going on? Okay. So once you select everything, you're fine. I think my bevel wasn't big enough, or isn't as the other ones are. So I'm going to, or for now, I'm just going to leave this as it is. So we have this right here, and to make this a little bit complete, I'm going to copy this and move this right here. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and I'm going to snap. I'm going to align. Align is at the top of the screen. I'm very sorry you can't see any of this, but at the top of the screen there is an align. You could click it to align to the center of X, down here the x-axis, remove this, hit OK. So at the top it's looking good. The front, I think I just bring that a little bit down and push it out. Okay, so camera view is good for this view, and I'm just gonna add one more pipe right there, and we could keep duplicating this since that's the original, and I'm just going to, whoops, not the radius, the height. So this is just going to be one long pipe, and let's see, where does it terminate? I could let's see now. Yeah, okay, so I think we didn't consider that, but I could just bring this down right here, and I'm going to duplicate this just so that we have a bottom, and I'm going to leave this here, and I'm going to go straight to the wall outlet, electricity outlet, and box. Come to my front view, create small outlet, give it a little bit of thickness. I can take it from my top view, move it backwards, and I'm gonna bring it in a little bit, bring this down. I think it's too big. I think it's fine. Gonna adjust my camera just a little bit by zooming in. So I want to bring this down a little bit. Okay, so now there's a there are boxes. Oh, sorry. So I have a box right here, and so what I've done is I've created this box. If you look at the camera view, I've created this box here, and you could create a box, or if you move along the modify panel, if you see it blinking to the right side of the screen, you go to the next tab, or rather you drop down the lists from standard primitives, and you have extended primitives, and you use chamfer box, and you would sort of like notice the difference between both of them. So from the top view, you can see a box being created, and you will notice that a chamfered box has basically, let me bring this to view. A chamfered box basically has the chamfered edge, which isn't sharp for the box, or well, which is sharp rather for the box. So I think I'll stay with the chamfered one and delete the initial box I created. So I'm going to increase the width just a little bit, move this a little bit to the side. So I'm going to have two sockets. It's a two double gang sockets, or whatever it's called. So for the Boolean operation, I'm going back to my creation panel. I'm going to create a box. I'm going to put in one of this. I'm going to bring this back so that you can see it. So the socket has 3 pins, so I'm going to have to duplicate this, and this is usually slightly smaller. I'm going to rotate this by 290 degrees, and I have this and this. Okay, so these are the pins, and I'm just going to boolean this. So before I do my boolean, I'm going to convert this to an editable poly. You can see right here, I've got right click and selected editable poly. I'm going to attach the remaining pins. Attach, and I'm going to, I still have it selected, so I'm going to drop down my menu, go to compound objects for the from the creation panel, from standard primitives, jump to compound objects, and you have your boolean somewhere along the line. So I have this selected. Oh, sorry, I think, not that I think, I made a wrong selection. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to select the box instead. Before I do that, let's just do it once and for all. I want to copy. And I'm also going to attach this so that I get this done once and for all. So I'm going to select the box instead, and I'm going to rename this to be my wall outlet, and I'm going to, on my modify panel, or rather creation panel, I'm going to jump from standard primitives to compound objects. I'm going to select boolean, and I'm going to, when it says, where it says add operand, I'm going to just add operand and pick the box right there, the pins rather, and you have a union. If you look along, I'm hovering around that menu, so you have union, you have your merge, and we could just click through them and you would notice the difference between all of them. So you have a union, which is basically adding all of them together. You have your merge, your intersect, your attach, and subtract. Some of these things were in elementary, not elementary, in mathematics. So subtract basically is what we want. So we've subtracted the pin from the box. So we have this now, and we have our pins cut out from the box. So I'm just going to, I could keep this as a compound object, or I could just change this to a polygon and an editable poly, and I have an object. Now the only reason why you would want to, if I undo, why you want to keep this as a boolean is that you could actually still go in and manipulate your you could manipulate the position of the object that you're using to cut it. So the way it is you want to select the actual object, and the operand is the object you're using to cut. So take note of that. I don't intend going back to this. I'm just going to convert this to an editable poly by right clicking and convert to an editable poly. And I think I need more stuff here. And what do I need? I need just something that looks like a screw cap. I'm going to go back to my standard primitive, and I'm going to create I think I'm going to create a sphere. I'm going to use a sphere here, and from the top I'm going to just move that backwards. I'm going to zoom in from my perspective, bring this shot. I'm going to squash this by scaling it down along the y-axis in my perspective viewport. I'm gonna take this a little bit back down, right about there, and I'm going to move this slightly backwards to the other side. I want to copy, and we're getting there. I'm just going to select all of this and group it together from your top menu. That's file, edit, tool, then group. You can group, or group, and you could name this wall outlet, and we're supposed to have a switch. Excuse me. So I'm going to use a line from my front viewport. I'm going to there's a slight decline in the middle of a switch. I'm going to draw this like this and like this. Close spline by right clicking. I'm going to use from the modifier list, you want to get out bevel. So learning can be, well, I won't say learning can be too difficult, but there are some things that should kind of like be easy to follow. If you cannot pick, for example, how I, you already know I beveled. So if you want to say, you want to Google it, you could say, how do you add a bevel modifier, or how do you add an editable poly modifier? So those things are easily found on Google, and from my next tutorials I'm going to figure out why all those menus aren't popping up on my screen. So I added a bevel, wrong one, bevel modifier, and I'm going to add all levels, and I'm going to increase the middle first. I think that's fine. and I'm going to add 0.5 here. I think that's too much. 2 minus 0.2 0.2. Add a minus in front of it. And for the other height, 0.2, and I'm gonna add 0.2 right there. So now it's given me the effect in the wrong. Bring this out a little bit. If I turn around, you should notice the height in the wrong direction. So I brought it out. Height. Now I'm gonna zero that out. Zero this out. Zero this out. And give it a height one more time of 2. It's 2. And height of say 0.2 and 0.2 minus. Okay, I think I'm doing something wrong. Okay, I know what to do, so I'm just going to 0, 0, 0 this. I'm going to give this a little bit more height for now, and I can see this now, height for level 3, so I'm going to add 0.2 for this one, and we have minus 0.2 for the outline. On the other end, I'm also going to add 0.2. I want a minus value so that it comes out. Oh, I get it now. Yeah. And 0.2. Yeah, so that's it. So now that I have this, I'm going to take this back to 1.5. And I can see that everything has a hard edge. So I'm just going to go back into my sub-object of the original line. I have these 2 points, and I'm going to increase it just a little bit. I'm going to, I think that's too much. Undo and 0.2. Going to hit that arrow just once, the fillet, and we have this. I could also sort of like adjust the handles of the vertex. I'm going to smoothen this one out. Excuse me. I'm going to bring these 2 down and take it further away. Bring this a little bit further down. Okay, I think this forms exactly what I want. Looks much better. So for size, I'm going to put this here. Going to, that's my front from the top. I'm going to move this all the way back. I'm going to rotate. That's a 90 and a 90 along. And obviously this looks very big, so I'm going to just this down just a little bit, and going to, from a perspective, hit Z and move this down. So excuse me, that's what the switch will look like. Gotta move this slightly backwards. Rotate it just a little bit. Yep, that's it. And I'm going to duplicate this. We want 2 for the 2 switches. Okay, gonna have this right here in the middle. Okay. So I'm also, I think I'm going to modify this guy a little bit. I'm going to ungroup it. From the group menu, I'm going to find the ungroup. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to select just this guy right here. Going to pull this in a little bit. Pull this in a little bit. So, you know what? I think I'm going to overall just reduce this. And I could just take the vertex or the vertices and move this a little bit in, right about there, and I'm done. Gonna pull you in also, right there. I think I'm going to move this a little bit more, right, and these 2 guys, gonna move it further in. Okay, I think for proportion that works. And I'm going to attach from the group menu. I'm going to go to my main group for the wall outlet, and oh, sorry about that. I ungrouped. I'm supposed to just open the group. You can open the group. You don't have to ungroup it. So I'm going to select all this here, and just group you back. Good. Could pull this forward if I want, or backwards. So there you go. I think basically from what we intended, we have what we wanted. So I'm gonna cut. Let's see this one more time. Okay, I think we need to add this guy right here, sort of like a pin down on the pipe. So how do we achieve this? Let's see now. I'm gonna use a cylinder. Let me see my floor. Cylinder. Sorry, that's a sphere. Delete. Cylinder. Bring you in. Okay. Right click. Convert to editable poly. Select my polygons on both ends, and I'm just going to make that a little bit, sorry, escape. Going to deselect the middle, make the 2, escape, undo. Okay, so I'm going to select both sides, deselect the middle, just going to bevel this slightly just to make the edges look better, and I'm going to I think I'm fine there, and I'm going to deselect right here. I need a cap segment, which I did not add from the beginning. So if I scroll through or down my modifier, still selecting both ends, top and bottom. So I'm just going to select all. Another way to do selections would be I could select all the sides from my front view, go to edit, and I can simply select invert by hitting Control I. I need to select the top and the bottom for you. So I'm going to use tessellate on those two. If you scroll down, you would notice that dank. If you scroll, sorry, I left that on the notepad. So let me do this just so that I don't fall into that mistake anymore. My pins. Let me move you up to okay. And I'm just going to scale you down. I'm going to use this view. Let me use this opportunity to say, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please please subscribe and hit the bell icon, just so that you know whenever I add a video to the channel, or whenever I live stream is coming up. So just going to add this in, and I'm going to bring this right down. Okay, so I think it's better here. Okay. All right, so let's cut back to a video. Subscribe if you haven't. And so I have a cylinder. I've beveled it a little bit. I have the two ends selected. I'm going to hit tessellate here, and I have the points increased, and I'm going to delete half of this polygons. I'm going to select just I'm going to select this, just select it, and I could do a quick slice. If you right click, you have a quad menu, and you have a quick slice rather, and you could come on. Okay, so you have a quick slice, it deselects, puts a line right there in the middle, it cuts through the whole thing, polygon, select one whole half, delete. I'm going to right click and isolate for now, and I don't think I actually need this also, so I'm going to do this. And I'm going to take all this edge, right click, alt, and I'm going to bring this all the way down, and right click, target weld, target world, target world. So like I always did mention, everything I'm showing is not directly the straightforward way of doing things. I'm just basically going rambling through a lot of tools just so that you're able to pick uses or different uses of these tools. So I'm going to pick the border, click on border here, and there should be a cap somewhere. So if I scroll through the modifier panel and I see cap there, covered here also cap, and that's complete. I'm going to select the polygon, right click here, right click here, and I'm going to extrude like so, and just one more. Oops, that's too much. And I'm going to use my top viewport to pick this a little bit, and I'm going to pick up the sides and extrude. You could have actually drawn a line to create what I'm creating, use the path modifier and all. You know, like I said, I mean, from this also you've picked up how to use the target world and so on and so forth. I'm just going to scale this a little bit down. Okay, so I'm going to end, right click and end isolation. This obviously might be too big, but let's place it in first. And right here, my top, going to bring this in, and I'm going to scale this all the way down to fit our piping. Now, because I started with the original radius of the piping, it's definitely gonna fit in. So we have our clip, and I could just do what I did before, put a sphere on the two sides. And I'm going to squash this and bring this right in here and here. Looking closely from my perspective viewport, bring this down a little bit. Okay, and I'm just going to group this. Select at the top, file, edit tools, group, pipe, clip. Good. So if we look into, sorry, I'm gonna jump into this. If we look at this, I think basically we have everything drawn out. So we've created something today, and I hope you've learned some new tools in 3D Studio Max. And from this view, if this is what my camera is saying, then trust me, we've done a good job. You don't have to bother with the fact that you know, the other parts are not made up. So as a finishing touch, I'm just going to add in, I'm going to go to my light. From the creation panel, I'm just going to, of course I'm going to touch on light a little bit later, so I'm going to come to, oh dang, I did this again. From the light, from the creation panel, I'm going to come to the light, which is right here, and I'm going to drop in, you're creating a photometric, oh sorry, So Arnold is the default renderer. So I'm going to go to Arnold right there, and I'm going to drop in an Arnold light. Drop this in from the top, right about here. From my front viewport, I'm going to bring this a little bit up. I'd like this to be targeted, so I'm going to come to the menu right here. You have on, and I'm going to target. I'm going to change this to default shading to let's see now. Active shade from standard right here, active shade, and going to push the lights to the side, select the target, place it right here, and drop the target just a tad bit. Right. Okay, so looking at the camera view right here, I think we have something nice going on. So I'm basically finishing up labeling your objects. You should have done this along the way, but I'm just going to do this now. Pipe 1, you labeled T-junction, pipe 2, pipe 3, pipe 4, and joint. I'm going to call this L joint. Okay, so this is the wall, and this is the floor. So if I were to quickly finish this up by adding some materials, do I have one? Okay, so I'm gonna drop a random material. I'm doing this by just going to my browser. I have it on my system already. I'm just going to drop a JPEG on the floor, and we have a material on the floor. For the wall, I'm going to give it a color of, say, gray, and hit OK on that. And for the pipe, let's see, what color can I use? I'm going to use this dark blue. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use the same thing for everything. I'm going to do that for the pipes only. So I didn't separate that joint, so I can't add you. Blue. Then for the joints, I'm going to use a similar shade, but slightly brighter. Okay, and for the wall outlet, I'm going to open. I want on group. I'll just open that, and I'm going to. Did I even need to do that? I think I'm just going to change the whole thing. I'm going to go back to group, close, and just change everything to white. Great. So, looking at this view, I think we have something good going. I'm gonna cancel my active shade right here, and let's see what it looks like. So for a very basic, would I say is it? I think this is basic. So for a basic creation, I think you should have learned a couple of things. Yeah, I'd like to change the color of this to what color now? Let's use this. Okay. I'm gonna open that up, and I'm going to select the two items that's supposed to be our screws. One and two. And I'm gonna make that slightly darker. Okay, I think I'm done. Alright, so for final render, this is what we just spent hours creating. This is something that shouldn't take too long. Like I said, I'm running through a lot of things, basically rambling and jumping around different tools, just so that you can have an idea of the different things and tools that are within 3ds Max, and that you can use in your creation process. So I'm going to, as usual, make this file available. If you want to use it for anything, you are free to use it for anything you want, basically. Just remember to support the channel by subscribing, referring us, and credit us wherever you think it fits. All right, so that's it for me for today, and I know you can't see the final render. Like I said, everything popping up of 3D Max for some funny reason isn't showing. You know what? Let me just save this image. Gotta save this image. Save it to a folder.